the rear view mirror. You got to go pedal to the metal if you want to find that spot at Worlds, and we're into Champion Select for game number 1.
And we've seen teams, not have strong regular seasons and still make the run through the gauntlet, put on good performances at Worlds. A lot of people talk about Cloud9 and
Miracle.
The miracle through the gauntlet with reverse sweep after reverse sweep after reverse sweep. That was a team that was not supposed to make Worlds, and yet they did. So, for TSM, for Echo Fox, for really everyone in the gauntlet, they're looking at this as a chance at redemption, right? A chance to wipe the slate clean. Because if you can have a great gauntlet, make it to Worlds, perform on that international stage, everyone forgets about whatever else happened during the regular season.
If you had a crap record throughout the regular season and you make it to semifinals and Worlds, that record will never be remembered by anyone forever. No one will care for any reason. This is your chance for absolution. This is your chance to redefine exactly what you're all about. And let's see how they go about it this time. With Akali, Zillion, and Urgot banned away by Echo Fox, TSM are going to remove the Braum, the Olaf, and the Kindred from the table, paying extra special attention over there to Dardoch, who has been one of the big key players for Echo Fox.
Yeah, definitely the case. And I think a lot of people definitely are a bit worried about Bjergsen on those assassins. So taking away the Akali from him, I think makes a lot of sense. Varus going to Lost, certainly his most comfortable AD. Going to be interested to see if we just get a lot of Kai'Sa, because when you look at the Echo Fox TSM series in the semifinals, it was 5 straight Kai'Sa games, I do believe, actually from Sven. Or no, actually 1, he did not play Kai'Sa. So he did actually mix it up. I'm thinking of perhaps a different series. But either way, certainly has had a very high priority on the Kai'Sa. It was against 100 Thieves that they had the 5 straight Kai'Sa games.
Well, this game, we're going to see TSM rock the Xayah Rakan in the bottom lane. Ever since they came out, these two have been a duo that's been very strong down there, especially for a long-standing duo like Sven and Mithy as players. Getting this kind of inbuilt synergy could go a long way for TSM.
Yeah, it certainly could, and I think it can be a very, very powerful pick here. May mean they want to try to play a little bit more around bottom lane, a little bit more around the power down there, but it has not been one of the most common picks for them. Only 2 plays on that Xayah for Sven this split, compared to the 13 Kai'Sa games he has amassed.
We're going to see Echo Fox respond with the Morgana, which is one of those picks that can really shut down what Rakan wants to do. Use the Black Shield, block that big engage.
Yeah, it definitely can, and it's so scary because as you go in for that grand entrance, if you actually catch him with the binding, you have the Varus ultimate to follow up. There was a tremendous amount of CC and lockdown there, so there is potential for that Rakan to just get straight up killed if he botches the engage, or if Smoothie is able to anticipate that and catch him with a binding.
And we've seen Smoothie do a lot of good anticipations, a lot of good reactions as a support player. His Tom Kench saves in particular have been pretty on point and have been a pretty important part of his team finding successes. We're going to see TSM respond to the solo lane pick of a Ryze for Echo Fox by picking up their top laner in Aatrox for Hanzo.
Yeah, very small chance it could be flexed elsewhere, but certainly expecting it to be up in that top lane, as you say. Urgot was banned out. Aatrox is back in the rotation in some of the other leagues. We have been seeing quite a bit of it in the LPL.
No longer
some in the LCK. Yeah, exactly. No longer perm ban, and it kind of went from super OP where everyone was playing it to then it got nerfed, no one played it, and then people were like, oh, hey, wait, it's actually still good. And they started playing it again. So we're on that stage of the cycle, but there are a lot of answers you can go, even just along the tank route. Poppy is one that a lot of people do like because that steadfast presence. You can, kind of interrupt his dashes. You can deal a lot of damage to him and kind of be more of that tanky utility style of play that just kind of holds even with him. Or you can look for more aggressive plays. We've seen counter picks come out in the past. Things like the Fiora match up very well 1v1 if you want to go for more of aggressive picks. We have seen Quinn even recently into the Aatrox in competitive play, which is much more of a risky pick, but again, something you can do.
And especially when you've got Hanser going up against Huni. I mean, we've heard Hanser talk before about this matchup and how he thinks he's just capable of taking Huni down like that. And we know that Huni knows that Huni is good. So when these two go together, if you get a chance to see a carry versus carry matchup between two players like that, that's always going to be just absolutely electric.
It really is. And for most teams, I would not really be considering the Fiora very much at all. And we still may not get it, but if there was a team to do it, I think it would be Echo Fox. Huni is extremely confident in his own play. This is a guy who I'd heard a lot of back when Aatrox was first coming out and actually practicing some of these counters and being the one to kind of popularize the Fiora, though it was actually, I believe, Optic who brought it out first on stage, the Fiora into Aatrox matchup, I think against CLG, if I can recall correctly. But either way, certainly some potential there.
All right, now Syndra locked in for TSM. This one's important because Bjergsen does have a very impressive record historically on this champion, but I will point out that when TSM and Echo Fox played each other last, just a couple of weeks ago, Syndra was one of the champions that TSM lost with.
And it was in this exact matchup, actually. It was the Rise versus Syndra. It's also interesting to see, they didn't decide to save, either of their solo lane picks for last because there was that blind pick mid laner. Bjergsen feels comfortable choosing his matchup now, and they're actually saving the last pick here for Grig. So it is going to be Ornn on the top side for Huni, so more of a standard pick here. And
no carry be carry.
No, unfortunately, we will just get more of a standard matchup. But we did actually see this, I believe, yesterday in the Echo Fox versus Clutch game. It was the Ornn versus Aatrox in game 1 where they were actually able to pull off a dive very early on, and they don't have the Olaf as they did yesterday, but Xin Zhao is another champion that kind of fits that same bill, that can play very aggressively early on, is very popular in the LPL in particular, gets a ton of play, and definitely can pair up very well with someone who does have that CC, and there's CC across the board here. There's the knock-up and lockdown in the top lane for Huni. There's the Rune Prison for Damonte, bindings and ultimates coming out from the bottom lane of Echo Fox. So a lot of places he could gank, and those Xin Zhao ganks early on are incredibly strong.
And TSM just had to throw me a bone and lock in the Skarner in game number 1. I love to see it picked up. We'll see how good Grig does on it here this game. You've got plenty of good targets to go for with the pull. You can always go for the mid laner, always go for the AD carry. The support isn't tanky this time around. The jungler isn't tanky this time around. The only thing you don't really want to pull is that Ornn.
Yeah, and we'll see if he's been watching your pro tip segments, if he does any butt twists.
I want to see a butt twist. If I see a kill that gets away because Skarner refused to twist his butt, we're going to have some words.
We definitely are. All right, well, it will be a good one here. Semifinals of the Gauntlet. A lot of lane focus, honestly, it feels like here for TSM. Not a lot of kind of true frontline power. It does feel like this is a lot about winning lanes, a lot about initiation, mid-game team fights. So we'll see if they can dominate.
And I really wonder exactly what these teams are going to come into this series thinking about just explicitly from the last time we played. Because we always consider the last time two teams played against each other when we see them going against each other again. Yeah. But it's very seldom that it is so recent and it was in a exact same situation, a best of 5, right? It went the distance. It went to game number 5. What do you take away from this, especially for Echo Fox, who came so close, but came up short?
Yeah, I mean, it can be tough, right? When you're looking at it from Echo Fox's point of view, Huni was sick. I think they're going to have that kind of weighing heavily on their minds and happy to have a shot at redemption here. And I'm kind of the opinion that despite Huni's sickness, it felt like it was Echo Fox's series to lose. They were up 2-1. It felt like they had control in most of the games. I believe they're only behind in gold in the early game, 1 out of 5 of the games. So we'll see if they can perform better and close it out here today.
All right, as the champions make their way onto Summoner's Rift, let's check in with a sideline report with Oddly and ThinkCard.
Thanks, guys. You guys are coming off of the momentum of yesterday's 3-0 win, but what makes you so confident that Echo Fox is going to take over today's rematch compared to last time?
Well, in our best of 5 against TSM in quarters, Huni was sick. We didn't have the best practice leading up to it. So we do feel like we're at a stronger form right now. And we feel like just all together we're playing better. So I expect this series to be more competitive for us and show that we're a more respected team than our performance in quarters.
Thanks. Wishing you the best of luck. Back to the casters.
There we go, talking about the differences between that series and this one, the preparation, the status of your top laner. I mean, everybody's been at that point in their life before. When you get sick, you just think back to the times where you weren't sick and how easy everything was back then. Like
had it
moving,
so good.
Breathing and eating and just generally existing.
Yeah.
Everything's harder when you're sick, man. And if Huni was feeling that way, I want to see what that does to impact him in this series when he can truly shine.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point as well. He mentioned the practice, right? If you are missing a lot of days of scrim time because you don't have your top laner there to practice because he's feeling too ill, that is certainly a very, very big deal there, as well as a lot of trading here. Very aggressive stuff in the mid lane. And both of these guys are running Inspiration Secondary. They're going to be running Time Warp Tonic. They are starting with that Corrupting Potion, so a lot of sustain to be had, but you always have to be careful because these low HP numbers will really draw the attention of the junglers, and certainly I favor Xin Zhao in any potential 2v2 early on.
That'll definitely pull their attention towards that area of the map, and I always like to see players play aggressively. I love just that playmaking, be the guy who takes things into your control, sets the pace of the game attitude. But even more so when you look at the matchup between the players, when you've got Demonte going up against Bjergsen, you've got this guy who's still relatively new blood going up against one of the most well-known, if not the most well-known name in the North American LCS. And to be able to just walk up and say, okay, I know I can go head-to-head with this guy, let's trade aggressively, that's a promising sign for me when I'm looking at this mid laner for Echo.
Yeah, it really is. And Bjergsen just playing intelligently. You could see he was playing to the top side of the lane. And that is simply because, as Demonte, you're level 2, he's level 3, and you just walked into a full minion wave plus a cannon there. That was I said I like aggro, trade.
But maybe not that much aggro. You gotta temper it a little bit.
At least wait until you hit level 3, but maybe he's just thinking, okay, I'm gonna go back to base anyway. But likely doesn't have a good buy yet, so definitely not what you want to see happen there if you are an Echo Fox fan or Demonte. But you know, the ward on the bottom side, it was actually a ward by bot lane, spotted Dardoch going up to Scuttle, which meant Bjergsen then placed the top side of that lane, which then means he avoids any potential gank. So these little things really do make a big difference, and so much of this professional game comes down to vision control.
Dardoch trying to steal away some of these Krugs from Grig. Now, for those of you who are not aware, Skarner outside of Spires is very much akin to a melee minion. And going up against something like Xin Zhao, you are not going to have a good time. No. You lose that fight 101 out of 100 times. There's one time you're going to lose it twice.
There you go.
You do not want anything to do with him. Grig's just going to walk up, make sure he secures that Krug, and stay the hell away from Dark.
And that's why, again, you know, vision becomes so important. If your team can track where Xin is, and Xin is not dying, well, like you say, if it's level 2 or level 3 you run into Xin, well, you're not feeling so good. No. If by the time you're 6 or 7, Xin hasn't killed anyone and you're farming
you're cruising.
You're feeling great.
You're fantastic.
So that is really what Grig is going to be looking for, just trying his best to avoid any real fully committed fights while he farms up and hits 6. But that is partially why you see Dardoch playing aggressively, trying to take away some camps from his opponent, and being able to go for both of those scuttles as well is going to mean that as he clears the rest of the map, he is going to be up in experience.
Grig clears out some of his own Raptors. Neither jungler has really found an opportunity to do a whole lot just yet. Bottom side, it's lost, taking some damage, but Mithy's going to be forced back now as well. Down to about 100 HP. Summoner spells still all 4 standing for both sides.
I think he actually was dead if that piercing arrow hit. That was so close to him, actually. Just barely missed, and with that W active, I think it would have been a kill. There's, you know, double cleanse. It's not like there's a heal available to actually save him. So that was pretty close to being a first blood in the 2v2. And TSM have got to be careful down here.
And for Sven and Mithy, remember these guys are coming over from winning so much in Europe, being a part of the G2 lineup that just dominated that region. They come over to TSM. They're creating this, what everybody sees as a super team of collecting the best talent in the West and putting it all together with the goal of doing well in international competition, succeeding where they weren't able to previously find that success. And it just hasn't been there so far. And especially, Mithy's had some rough games throughout the season. Yeah. It seems like he hasn't had the coordination with the rest of the team. He's been caught out at different times. Things have not gone the way they wanted them to. So this bottom lane in particular is 2 guys that I'm always looking at in these TSM games to say, all right, when are we going to see that step up? When are we going to see those championship level plays? Because they have showcased them, and when they do, it does look damn impressive.
Yeah, it really does. And I would say often when they're showcasing them is the late game team fights. I think that Sven is exceptional with his team fighting, you know, mid game, late game. So that is certainly often why they kind of play this more passive style. And you can see 3-man mid here looking for Bjergsen.
The Ornhorn, baby! Under the turret they go, and first blood goes to Dardoch. But it's a return kill. Bjergsen goes ahead, pops off the ulti just to make sure.
Nice proactive play there from Echo Fox, but honestly, if you're Bjergsen, you'll take that. You got 3 members mid, the ultimate out from Huni on that roam, and Dardoch's flash, and you traded back a kill, so pretty damn good. And Haunter trying to zone Huni away from some of these minions. Pretty explosive start there.
And I mean, I mentioned that last time Bjergsen lost with this pick against Echo Fox, but he's got an amazing record with it. It's because he knows the potential of his champion.
Yeah, and this was honestly a really nice ultimate there from Huni, getting the redirect right onto him. But Bjergsen gets his combo down, drops the ultimate, and that in addition to the turret is able to burst down Dardoch and trade back a kill. So gold remains just about even off of the play. But it's good to see Echo Fox being proactive, especially when you do have that Ornn. You love to see the Ornn getting out of lane, looking for plays around jungle, looking for plays around mid lane, because that ultimate can be so powerful. And you're not really going to need it for the 1v1 against Aatrox, where it's very unlikely you will be getting a solo kill here.
I mean, why would you be looking to go into a real 1v1 against him? Anyway, Demonte trying to go in now with the portal. Once again, Echo Fox looking for Bjergsen, trying to keep him down.
Yeah, that scatter was very nice. Got to throw a little bit of criticism the way of Smoothie, though. No Black Shield coming out that I saw. You know, perhaps could have actually Black Shielded Dardoch and allowed him to have that time to close the gap. Instead, it's TSM. With that failed play mid lane from Echo Fox, they're going to start up the Infernal, and it looks like it will just be theirs. The Dardoch is up on the top side of the map by the blue quadrant, clearing his wolves, so well played here to TSM.
First Drake, first Infernal Drake over to your team just 8 minutes in. Feels very good for this TSM squad. In game number 1, when these two teams played in the quarterfinals, actually, it was a big fight that broke out around the first Drake that set Echo Fox behind for the majority of that first game. And obviously, they learned their lesson from last time. This is what I'm talking about, adaptations. Even though it's an Infernal Drake, man, that thing was juicy. You want to get in there. You want to fight for that. But there was no way they were going to get in. Nobody tried to do anything. Concede it and move on.
Yep, they are going to be able to grab that for themselves on the side of TSM. And it's interesting to see Greg here also going for challenging smite on the Skarner. And, you know, very often you do see the chilling smite, people, you know, wanting the extra move speed, being able to close the gap and get those ultimates off. But this is going to be a bit better dueling against the Xin Zhao. If Xin Zhao is going to be invading you and getting up in your face, you have a better chance at skirmishing. Maybe you're going from melee minion to a cannon?
Yep, you big old cannon minion now. The way I always like to describe it is, at least in solo queue, Chilling Smite's probably a 4 out of 5 games buy for Skarner. The remaining game is one where you're up against something that is a capable duelist, like a Xin Zhao, like a Graves or something similar, and you know that if you get into a fight with this guy, you are going to need that extra armor that being a cannon minion will provide, or the power of a red smite if we're talking in actual gameplay terms. So I like the pickup for fighting against the Xin Zhao. Of course, you've also got your big initiations coming out from your Rakan to make sure that you can still get pulls off once the team fights come around. The Chilling Smite won't be missed in that regard. But Echo Fox is still a team that's scrappy, Azael. This is still a team that we have known for just always looking for where can we win a fight? How can we set up a fight? And that's still what I'm constantly looking for from them this time around.
Yeah, and they have been trying to find those fights, but as the observers were just showing us, the vision has been very, very good for TSM. I mean, there was a ward in the far brush in the lane, so Dardoch couldn't go for a lane gank. There was a ward in tri-brush, so he can't come from that approach. They have the scuttle control, so he can't come through the river. There's nowhere that he can go to actually get down to that bottom lane, because they were looking to actually combo with Smoothie and Lost now that they have hit level 6. If you can hit the Varus ultimate into a Binding, into a Xin Zhao, into a Morgana ultimate, there's so much.
You're dead before that sentence is done, man.
Exactly.
So deadly if they can chain that CC together. But so far, like you said, TSM's doing a good job of just stalling, buying that time, allowing themselves to get to that late game team fight you were talking about, where Sven and Mythy can really shine and show off the caliber of players that they are. And we know that Bjergsen on the Syndra can do the same thing, putting down the damage. Of course, when you also look across the board at Echo Fox, you do have Lost on this Varus pick that, as you mentioned in Champion Select, is one of his signature picks. This is the champion that this guy can work his magic on, as Demonte finds himself stunned up by the Scatter of the Weak. Grig's not going to go any further there. Demonte's flash will be prized enough. Dardoch hanging around to the side means they're not going to go in any further. Huni looking to find the 1v1 here onto Haunter, brings him low. Oh, say it ain't so.
Ooh, you hate to see it happen.
You really do. You really do. Pause comes down. Not sure as to the exact reason yet. We'll keep you guys updated as we get information. Right as Haunter falls down to, let me check what that is, 41 HP.
It's not a lot, but he does have his ultimate active. He actually popped it before he got hit by the Ornn Horn there. So he will be reviving, and then the question is just if Huni can kill him again after that. And the answer, spoiler, is very, very low chance, because he's already used all his abilities to actually get him this low. So you are expecting Haunter to kind of slink away, maybe be forced back to base, but Huni laning aggressively here, and certainly looking like he is on form, at least in game number 1.
You know why this is happening, right? This solo kill? Because earlier we said there's no way that Orange solo kills Aatrox.
He's not solo killing him. He's forcing cooldown.
He's forcing his ultimate. All right, sure. He's just forcing the ultimate out instead. But either way, Hauntzer's on the losing end of this one. He'll likely be downed into that pseudo Guardian Angel form when the game does resume. But if you look at the state of the rest of the game, jungle farm pretty much dead even, which, as you mentioned earlier, does favor Grig on the Skarner as he's going to scale. He'll be able to do more in the fights later. Mid lane, very even between these two. Bottom lane, it's an advantage for Lost. But again, talking about what Venomith he can do later on in the game, we're going blow for blow in the first 11 minutes of this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100 gold or even less that separates these two teams. And Bjergsen did request a pause there, so that is why we are paused up, and that is why we have our wonderful Donald investigating on the scene. He's going to be fixing it up, no problem. But hopefully we'll be able to get back into it very quickly, and hopefully there's no major issues. And when you do talk about an even game, then you have to start looking at, okay, well, who does team fighting favor? Who does the late game favor? And both teams kind of have, I think, their strengths and weaknesses in that regard. When you talk about a Xin Zhao versus a Skarner, in the team fights, you generally would rather have that Skarner, I would certainly think, as you're getting towards the later stages. Aatrox versus the Ornn, if it's a head-on team fight, you'd think you'd much rather have the Ornn. For Aatrox to really be effective in those teams fights, you have to either get a flank or be in a side lane or do something like that. But really, it's fairly even, I would say, down the line. Xayah, Rakan, incredibly strong team fighters. Morgana and the Varus obviously can be as well. There's a lot of kind of team fight power, as well as the ability to 1-3-1 on kind of both these teams, or even 1-4, because you could send Ryze out to match Aatrox. So there's a lot of flexibility in these teams, and I think certainly no clear scaling advantage to either side.
And I'm going to keep my eyes especially on Smoothie as we get into these big team fights, because once again, we're going to approach this from the point of view of someone who only plays one champion. Skarner versus Morgana is a game of mind games.
Yeah.
Constantly. You're always trying to jockey for positioning where you threaten onto two potential different targets at a minimum with your flash ult so that you make Morgana guess, and in the split second that she has to guess between whoever it is she has to save, you go for the other one. That's the entire mental game between Morgana and Skarner as the game goes on. And Smoothie, I applauded him earlier during Champion Select, saying, I've seen this guy come in with clutch saves on picks like Tom Kench, doing things to keep teammates alive when otherwise they're dead to rights. And this game, it's his responsibility to make sure he's shielding those value targets and keeping them away from Grig's ult.
And I would say if it was just the Skarner that he had to worry about, then hey, you should expect him to get it more times than not. Yeah. But when there's also the Rakan engage, when there's also Scatter the Weak, when there's magic damage that can be coming through to actually break that up, it becomes very, very difficult. Because as you say, Skarner can be flashing forward, as Mithy can be ult engaging on someone else, as Bjergsen is hitting a Scatter the Weak and one-shotting someone else. It becomes very, very difficult. And you can say, oh, well, just Black Shield early. But that's going to get broken by one spell here from the Syndra. So certainly a lot to think about here for Smoothie. And I think that Morgana is a very, very strong pick in the 2 versus 2. But we'll see if he can actually find that effectiveness in the team fighting, because that comes down more to how he's able to play it out.
Quick update for you guys. We'll be getting back into game here in just a couple of minutes. The issues are being resolved pretty quickly from what I'm being told, so it shouldn't be too much longer before we are back on Summoner's Rift, getting this game going once more. But we talked about Smoothie. We talked about the junglers a little bit. We talked about the top laners because, of course, where they're sitting. But now I want to talk about the mid laners, because I want to go back to what we were discussing earlier when I brought up Bjergsen and the Syndra and the fact that he lost on this champion in the last series against Echo Fox in the quarterfinals. And when I was rewatching this series and I was just sort of trying to look at trends and why things were happening and how they seemed similar, Bjergsen won on champions that he had autonomy with. He won on Irelia twice, and he won on LeBlanc. Champions that don't need anybody to hang around and protect them, support them, do anything. The champions he lost with were Syndra and Azir, which, although they can make plays on their own, are specifically more vulnerable than something like LeBlanc or Irelia when left alone. And so what I want to see from this series, from TSM, is if you're going to put Bjergsen on a pick where he can potentially be vulnerable, do not allow him to fall into one of those positions of vulnerability.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a really good point. And if you can protect Bjergsen on this Syndra, he will reward you with those proactive plays later on. He will find stuns. He will zero people out. I mean, it's his most played champion is 59 plays before this game. almost a 70% win rate. 69.5% win rate is
in
pretty
pro
ridiculous.
Play,
yeah, I mean,
you don't hit those numbers in solo queue.
yeah. Well, at least I don't.
I don't hit those. No, yeah, okay, yeah. Maybe all right. Maybe Bjergsen does, but your average run-of-the-mill good player at League of Legends isn't even going to have those high of numbers. I mean, you have a 55 in something. That's a very solid win rate.
Yeah, definitely. At least over a long number of games. But either way, you know, it is one of his most successful champions. It is one of his most comfortable champions. And you're putting Demonte, who is relatively inexperienced, up against Bjergsen, who has been considered by many to be the greatest player of all time in the LCS. And not only that, he's on his best champ.
Whew, it's a hard situation to be in, but Echo Fox are confident that they can be able to walk away with the win here. Like what we heard from ThinkCard when he was talking to Avali before the games. They think the preparation, the difference in the state of their top laner, multiple factors will contribute into making this series come out different than the last one, which, remember the last one, I mean, we're talking about the fact that Echo Fox lost it, but this wasn't a 3-0 TSM stomp. The shortest one was 28 minutes, the longest one was 38 minutes, and still it went the distance. It was a slugfest down to the very end, and now we're back into the game. 11 minutes, cresting 12 minutes now as we make our way in. Let's take another look at that fight that got interrupted top lane.
Yeah, here is the play up on the top side once more. Huni able to get Haunter fairly low, has the ultimate available, hits the R2, but you can see Haunter pre-pops his ultimate, knowing he may have enough damage to actually get knocked down, and does not actually even proc the ultimate there, as Huni doesn't want to give him that additional life back, so going to be able to heal back up. That's the thing. I mean, Orin has maybe a small chance to actually burst you down, but if he can't do that, he likely is not going to win once those abilities are on cooldown, and TSM calling for that lane swap early on, looking to get out of that 2v2. They have the Stormrazor complete here on Sven, and we'll see if they want to try to go for a dive. I mean, you can see Demonte cheating up here, but there's 4 men from TSM, and I think at the very least they're going to get first turret. This is honestly a really nice move, taking your losing 2v2 bot lane and getting yourself a first turret on the top side.
They've got Grigg shadowing this as well. If Huni tries to stick around at all, he will definitely die in the 1 versus 4, and that means TSM will collect their first turret gold bounty. Giving that one over brings them up to a nice little bit of a gold lead that will be mostly equalized by the return turret take in the bottom side from Echo Fox, but the first turret bonus is the advantage TSM walks away with at the end of the day. Grigg now onto the Rift Herald. Hopefully he doesn't make the same mistake Echo Fox made yesterday and forgets the eyeball on the ground.
Yeah, that would be a little bit unlucky, but we'll see. If they can actually take the second turret, then Echo Fox certainly looking pretty good in this trade, and it looks like they will be able to get it. So despite the fact that they give up first turret, they do get 2 for themselves. TSM grabbed the Rift Herald though, so there's an opportunity cost to that, but there is the potential to get a lot out of it as well, and they are now kind of collapsing here on the mid lane. 4 TSM members, they're going to look to try to bully down this mid lane.
Flash ult available on both Mithy and Grigg. Grigg, no Predator just yet, is still waiting on that cooldown to come back up onto the boots. TSM just continuing to roam around as a squad, though. Push these lanes up, put themselves in a good spot, maintain priority, and make Echo Fox answer. When you're up against a scrappy team like this, when you're up against guys who are always looking to force the fights, just make them play around objectives instead.
Honestly, really nice job here from TSM. They do end up getting the mid lane turret. I would prize that pretty highly, and they're going to move it over onto this dragon. So pretty good objective play. The gold is basically dead even. TSM's only real advantage has been that dragon.
Oh, the TP's coming in from Huni, though, behind TSM. This is going to be a big team fight. That's 4 hit by the first part of the horn. It's going to be 3 knocked out by the second. The root comes through. It's a lot of damage going in onto TSM right now, but can Echo Fox follow it up? Haunter onto the front line, going to be taken very low, but Bjergsen has bursted Huni. It's a 1 for 0, plus a Drake going the way of TSM.
Yeah, Huni, it just felt like he really wanted to get something there. He's already committed the ultimate, committed a TP. The dragon was gone, and it looked like the rest of his team was trying to back up. But Huni is going forward. He goes down while Haunter just gets to use that ultimate to come right back up. And TSM is already pushing on the bottom side as well. Really making some nice moves around the map.
At the same time, Echo Fox does a good job answering. They're saying, all right, the fight went bad. We lost a guy, we lost a Drake, whatever, regroup, see what we can take. There you go. Go middle, find that turret. It's still going to be 3 turrets to 3 overall. Echo Fox does a good job at answering TSM's objective game in that respect, but this fight just doesn't work.
Yeah, here is the TP from Huni one more time. The engage is good, but you can see Echo Fox is not really fully committing to it. Demonte was chasing over to Grig, and then look at the rest of Echo Fox. It looks like they're backing off, right? Like this 3-man squad is moving out as Huni is going in, so some poor communication and coordination there from Echo Fox in the team fight, and TSM simply turns on Huni, bursts him down, and then is able to get out. And while the gold is very, very close, not a big deal on either side, it is TSM with 2 dragons to 0.
One of those being Infernal, one of those being Ocean. More damage, more regeneration. Serve TSM pretty well as time goes on.
And you also have to take in consideration the fact that not only did they get those 2 dragons to 0, they got it with a bottom lane that was losing. So that kind of just means they have outmaneuvered their opponents across the map, and certainly you're going to be happy, I think, about their position from here. That being said, Echo Fox still has easily the potential to win a team fight and you know, flip this game on its head.
Especially with items coming online now. Both AD carries have had their first item done for a while. You've got the Luden's Echo on the Syndra, meaning the burst is that much scarier than it's normally going to be. Still stacking the Archangel Staff into the Seraph's Embrace for Demonte's Rise. He's up to 500 out of 750 on those stacks. Black Cleaver also done for Haunter, means that Aatrox's big first scary bruiser item is done. He's moving on to the second one with Caulfield's Warhammer in the inventory. As the gold still only stays 600 apart, Azael. That's kind of what we were talking about with, yeah, TSM's doing a good job outmaneuvering their opponents, but it's also Echo Fox doing a good job answering those maneuvers. Even if they aren't the ones in the driver's seat, they're responding appropriately to those movements.
Yeah, they really have been, but here they are again. TSM is collapsing, though.
Monster once again going to lose the passive, getting value out of it every time so far. Grig's going to be in some trouble, isolated around multiple Echo Fox members, does get taken down. Moss grabbing the kill credit. Now it's Huni onto the front line, looking to find even more. He retreats as TSM's counterattack reigns true, and Huni's on the ground once more. Sven grabs the kill.
Yeah, the trade of kills there. Grig for Huni is, it looked like it was going to be a heavily Echo Fox favored fight, but the collapse came in from TSM, and once again, Huni kind of segments himself from the rest of the team. Bjergsen kind of cutting off that angle for Echo Fox to follow up on Huni's fight. Means that they get another kill there, and Huni is fairly squishy at this point of the game to magic damage because he has built, you know, the Iceborne, he has built Tabbies, there's no HP, there's no MR on that. Just has a little bit from this Catalyst, and here it is one more time. Dardoch and Huni want to go for the play on Haunter, but Haunter's ultimate really has been getting so much value, as you called out, bringing up that revive. Grig does get focused down, but Sven flashing over the wall, committing to this play. And it looks like Echo Fox could have just taken the 1 for 0, but Huni, again, flashes in. The ultimate from Zen kind of zones away a lot of Echo Fox, and then the fact that Bjergsen is between Echo Fox and the rest of the team means they can't get to Huni, and he gets taken down.
Also important to note, the entirety of that fight was 4 versus 5. Demonte was in the top lane the entire time. Did have teleport available, chose not to use it there. So while it was 1 for 1, more resources were invested by TSM, so you could say there's a little bit of a win there for Echo Fox and allowing their mid laner to get some more farm at the top side, build up that economy, so when he does show up to the next fight, he's going to be that much stronger, but at the same time, next Infernal Drake Azael is only 90 seconds away, and I guarantee you both teams are going to want to fight for that.
Yeah, Bjergsen's just at such a ridiculously strong point in the game for Syndra. Coming into this Infernal fight, he already has the first Infernal. He has double spell pen items and his Ludens, so that is one-shot territory onto the Varus. I don't think it even matters if he gets Black Shielded. If you get a full combo with a lot of orbs down, Varus likely dies through everything. So you have to be so careful about how you play out these next fights. But you also have 2 items on Sven, and that is a really big deal there. You have the item completion just coming through kind of faster right now for TSM. We'll see if Echo Fox has time to complete their items to get back to base, but with Zeke's 2 items on Sven, you know, this double spell pen and everything completed for Bjergsen, I kind of favor them in the next team fight.
Echo Fox will try to move down into the bottom part of the river right now, setting up some vision for this next Drake, wanting to make sure that they've got control of the area early, force TSM to walk into their vision, maybe put them in a disadvantageous spot.
Dardoch
Dardoch wants to come around behind here. Chains of Corruption go through. They're looking to go onto Sten. Goes into that ulti immediately. As Minty comes back around, he's going to be juggled right back towards the rest of the team. Instead, Stealth going to be kept alive as Lost is in some trouble. Haunter's looking to find the damage. Quick grabs the kill into Dardoch, who goes a little bit too deep. It's still just going to be 1-for-1 so far, as Haunter's still trying to find even more. Hooney's going to be tanking up so much damage yet again. Stunned up, brought down. Haunter grabbing the kill. And TSM makes it 2-for-1.
Yeah, they get 2-for-1 there. Both summoners are off of Loss as well, as Bjergsen just blows the ultimate on Hooney to knock him down. As we said, no MR really purchased up for him just yet. And now it's TSM who can look to make the move onto the Dragon, but Xbox are trying to control space in the air. They're trying to get time for Dardoch and Hooney to arrive to the scene. Getting up double Infernal to a fed Syndra would be bad news.
I really like what Bjergsen is doing to Hooney in these fights. He doesn't care about the fact that that's normally a tank. He's abusing the lack of MR, and he's destroying the front line and allowing his team to just fight front to back like that. And Smoothie is deleted. That means Infernal Drake goes the way of TSM, and we are once again back to this beautiful sepia tone.
We are back to a pause here, but TSM in full control now. Double Infernal really is a huge advantage here, especially when you are looking at these damage dealing characters. You have a DPS top laner with the Aatrox. You have this is kind of assassin mid laner. Yes, it is a mage, but essentially the way it works is similar to assassin, because if you can get past the damage threshold of a one combo,
I kill you before you move.
Exactly. You become so much stronger. Like, being able to 100% someone is ridiculously better than being able to 80% or 90%. And with double Spell Pen, with the Ludens, with double Infernal, Bjergsen likely is going to hit those sorts of numbers. And it's also part of the reason he could attack Hooney here, who hasn't built any flat MR. He's facing up against a lot of flat Spell Pen here from Bjergsen. And Bjergsen has just been able to kind of execute the tanks.
Quick update on the pause this time around. It was called by Smoothie, who says that Bjergsen's E, the Scatter the Weak, the stun, was invisible to him in that last fight, and the refs are now investigating this to see if that's actually how it worked out, if that's the state of the game right now, and then we'll see where we go from there. So I'll give you guys more updates as we get those, as they become available. But right now, this game is starting to look more and more in the favor of TSM. They've got a couple thousand gold lead. They've controlled every Drake so far. Yes, the turrets are close. Yes, the kills aren't just running away quite yet. But it just seems like Hooney's over-aggression is punished every single time by TSM.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the team just doesn't really look on the same page when you see that Hooney is kind of moving forward. Oftentimes the team has been moving backward, or the team has not been ready to kind of follow up on any potential engage from him, which to me speaks more about kind of mismanaged communication and poor communication than it does about, individually they're messing up. It's more just, okay, hey, maybe those Hooney engages are great if everyone is expecting it and everyone is flashing forward and everyone is following up, but when that doesn't happen, you're just throwing away your life.
All right, well, we should have a replay here in just a second of Smoothie's last death against Bjergsen and up against that Scatter of the Weak that he said is experiencing a visual error. So let's take one more look at that.
Yeah, so here we have those balls out on the ground, and there is the Scatter of the Weak. Obviously, we can see that on the Observer client. Doesn't mean that he can necessarily see it on his own client, and we do have the ability to actually see what it was like from his point of view. So the refs will be investigating that to make sure that it was what's on his screen, not just what we're seeing. But very clearly there to us, you could see the orbs on the ground. Scatter the Weak hits him. He gets exploded by a very fed Syndra.
Which, of course, leads us to 2 Infernal Drakes for TSM. And when you're considering a gold lead, you've always got to count the Infernal Drakes as an extra bonus on top of what's already there.
And I always just think that anytime there's an Assassin or a Syndra or a burst sort of champion, they're worth multiplicatively more because, again, of hitting those certain thresholds where you can
It's a yes or no, right?
Exactly. And that becomes so scary for Echo Fox. And honestly, even if Smoothie doesn't go down there, perhaps he's able to back off, but I don't think they have really any chance of actually challenging for that dragon because Dardoch and Hooney still weren't out on the map. You don't have a smite. You're down a member, and very likely not going to really be able to contest there. That being said, miracle steals have happened.
Yep. It's always been a thing before. It'll always be a thing in the future. And one thing I'm also going to point out now, if you look at the inventories, Hooney still has 0 magic resistance. It looks like he is itemizing towards magic resistance next. He has a Kindle Gem, he has a Ruby Crystal that could be built into a Spectre's Cow, he could be going for a Spirit Visage there. There's a lot of options. But no magic resistance.
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually feel like if you have the Kindle Gem plus the Ruby Crystal, you're going Warmogs, so you're actually still not going MR.
Yeah, you could be going Warmogs too. There's a lot of choices.
And to be fair, if you hit a certain amount of HP, if you build enough HP, it becomes no longer worth it for Syndra to actually use the ultimate on you, even without that MR. But I would have expected from this situation to see him complete his Abyssal, right? Like, that's why you have the Catalyst. You pick up some flat MR. Even just one Null Magic Mantle, the 450 gold there, counters so much of the resistances, you know, the flat pen that comes through, because that's 25 MR. For the Oblivion Orb plus the Sorcerer's Shoes, that's like 2,600 gold for 30 flat pen, or you could spend 450 for 25 MR.
Right, you're negating a ton of what it is, and at the end of the day, it feels like there's a lot more value in that than grabbing another Ruby Crystal.
For sure. I completely agree that he should be at least grabbing that up to deal with some of the bursts that Bjergsen has been putting down. But you know, we have a lot of items that are going to be pretty quickly coming through for Echo Fox. You know, once we have Lost on the Rage Blade, that is going to really kind of ramp up his damage. That, in addition to the Blade of the Ruined King, is going to be helping him to punch through a lot of the HP that Skarner in particular has built up. But that is where it comes down to, you know, Mithy and Grig and those sorts of guys putting pressure onto Lost and not allowing him to kind of just be a turret, right? Threatening the engage, making him back up, and kind of making him play scared in the team fight can significantly reduce the amount of damage that he's actually able to do.
And talking about the items we're seeing completed, I want to go ahead and touch on the build from Dardoch now as well while we're still paused, because a lot of times you see Xin Zhao's go with aggressive builds. You see a warrior into either a Trinity Force, you see sometimes like a Sterix Gauge or something similar, a bruiser type item. But this time around, it's strictly supportive role after the warrior. He's gone for the Knight's Vow, wants to make sure he keeps the carry safe with that. Then he's got Quicksilver Sash, just so he can't be pulled by the Skarner. I still stand by what I say in Champion Select, where anybody other than Huni is going to be a pull that can win you a fight. Just because you have a Knight's Vow doesn't mean you're getting away from it. That's not a real tank item. So I like the fact that he picked this up because it means he can get himself out of those bad situations and still be useful in these fights.
Yeah, and unless you're snowballing, it's not worth, I think, building pure damage. You know, grabbing some utility here. It's going to be about team fighting. Makes a lot of sense. But I believe we are going to toss it over to the guys at the desk to talk about the game until we're back into the action.
Oh, hello there. Quick break while we chrono break back to 2102. Sorry, I was getting all the info in my ear there, so I was listening very intently so I could pass the information along to you, the viewers. But a chrono break has been offered to the side of Echo Fox because Smoothie on the Morgana could not see the Syndra E and the orbs coming towards him. Would have probably black shielded, I guess, is the assumption, to maybe save himself from death, but offering a chrono break back to 2102, it has been accepted. So while that is all reloading back onto the stage, we're going to take some time to talk a little bit about what's been going on in this series. Jat, I know in particular you wanted to talk about Huni, and in particular his play on tanks.
Yeah. Since Huni is a player that so much identifies with carries, we started the conversation during the game of how well does he judge his damage and the damage he can tank on tanks? Because I was kind of the opinion, when I've seen Huni play tanks, at least on SKT, he looked really good in tank versus carry matchups, because I think that stems from his understanding of carries. But I also think that in tank v tank, like playing pure frontline, I think he makes some questionable decisions.
We're going to roll through 3 team fights right here.
One big part of playing a tank that I think doesn't get talked about a whole lot is knowing when to go in. A lot of it is not just looking at the other team, but it's watching your team as well, like knowing you have the follow-up. And in both of these exchanges, it looks like Huni just wasn't on the same page with his team. You see his whole team is hitting Grig back here, and then Mithy goes in distracting them. And then Huni flashes in while his team is zoned by Zaya's ultimate, so he just ends up getting killed. So whether that's, you know, Huni going too far in or his team not following up, there's definitely some disconnect that's been going on.
And that last point's what I want to look at a little bit, especially in this replay, where I think Echo Fox have a good chance to win this fight. You know, after they kite out here, the stun goes off, the root goes off, and you're looking at Haunter, and that ult's about to time out, and it feels like Huni's the only one who's really aware of that. And if the rest of his team was hovering closer behind him as he CC'd Haunter, then they can probably get that kill. But it's one of those things where synergy is so much more important than who's ultimately right or wrong. Because looking at that, you can say, I believe Huni could actually make a case like, listen, his ult was about to wear out. Was no one else aware of this? Like, why are we backing out? We were the only 2 guys there, and my DPS was closer, so if we just killed him, we win. But it doesn't matter if your team's not on that page and the call is back out or something.
Looking at that last one specifically, I actually think that I think they could have gone in Echo Fox, but I do think Huni went in too early because if you just look at the positioning, Lost was like, what, 30% health? So I don't know if Syndra had flash, but like, Syndra creates a huge zone that you have to respect, and Damonte was still farther away than Bjergsen was. So, like, knowing that the other team's going to get reinforcements before you will is a huge part of the game, and I think that sometimes, like, people will miss it, and it seems like Huni's been overextending a little bit in these fights.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And these are kind of just general team fighting skills that are intangible, right? Huni, in a lot of games, is going to be a head and gold, CS, but Impact, to me, is the best team fighting tank versus tank player in the league. So he will have a larger influence on the team fight because of how well he pushes and pulls with the rest of his team. And in this game, even though Aatrox isn't a pure tank, I would argue that Hauntzer's had a much larger effect on frontlining in team fights with how much damage he's been able to soak with his ultimate while not dying. Whereas even if Huni's making like good initiation plays, getting out a lot of damage, he's not pushing and pulling, he's just pushing.
Right, I think that's a great example in the second replay we saw where Grig wrapped around the side. He identified Grig as the more threatening target and actually used his E on him as opposed to getting ready to use it on Haunzer so they could chain CC and kill Grig. But then after they get that first kill, it feels like he's in, we're winning the fight mode. In the meantime, Damonte was up on the top side, never collapsing on that fight. So even after you kill one, it's still a 4v4.
Yeah, I do think that Echo Fox has this like go, go, go mentality, which, you know, it's good. Aggression's great, but it needs to be balanced out with a little bit of like reservation sometimes, knowing when you shouldn't pull the trigger.
Yeah, I mean, we talked specifically, you know, about Huni and a bit about yesterday, his performance in the lane against Solo, both, you know, in a tank versus carry matchup, playing against an Aatrox there, but also playing both sides of the Urgot matchup. I mean, he's definitely at the moment charged with, it seems, you know, the role of understanding, well, multiple roles, right? You know, in terms of like the tank version of a top laner, the carry version of top laner, and then the matchups across, you know, all of that. And so I guess my question to you guys is, you know, is Echo Fox as well with this knowledge putting him in the best position to succeed? Are you suggesting that there's an adjustment to be made to make Huni more successful if he has certain deficiencies when playing tank champions?
I don't know if I would. Usually when I see something like this, I don't usually sum it up to just one player because while it does seem like Huni's overextending a little bit, a big part of team fights is on the carries communicating what they can hit and what they cannot. Because, you know, I play a lot of tanks myself, and I do have to like keep in mind where my carries are, and I have to listen to them saying like, hey, I'm getting zoned right now, I can't go in, we got to kite back, and that kind of thing. And so I think that it's kind of on both sides there.
All right, well, go ahead.
Well, I think that Huni just isn't that practiced on Ornn, straight up. Last series, so yesterday, he landed a 4-man ultimate near the base gate wall of the opponent. He got 4 of them in. Then he tried to E through the base gate.
That doesn't work.
Maybe he thought he could break the terrain.
With terrain. Maybe he thought it was a, you know, mind fart and he just hit right into the thing. But I've seen him do a lot of this on Ornn even last year. Like, he actually pridefully said after he played Ornn in an LCS game and messed up 90% of his Ornn ultimates, he's like, oh yeah, second time Ornn, by the way. Right? He's so confident that he can play everything, and he's so good at carries, he needs to be able to have, like, you only have so many hours in a day. He doesn't put that many hours in on tanks, so I think it shows when they pull it out on stage.
Well, and even yesterday, he's kind of getting some reinforcement where he played the Ornn Aatrox matchup. They smashed it, and then 20 minutes later into the game, he's in a side lane versus the Aatrox getting a solo kill, and it's like, okay, that's probably going to make you think you're really ready to play this matchup, but then you play it in a closer game, you play it where the enemy mid laner is a Syndra who's pretty strong, and suddenly you're starting to play too far forward because you're not 2K gold up.
Yeah, one point you mentioned that I really like, and I don't know if it always gets touched on, is every pro player wants to think they can play every champion. Like, if you ask someone, hey, can you play this? Like, if someone asks me, like, Midas, can you play Lee Sin? I'll be like, I know what the champion does. Like, I've won an ARAM with him before, but like
you've won a Worlds game with him before.
People like sure maybe you can have a good laning phase, maybe you know your champion, but like to really know how to play it, to master your champion, you need to know everything, not just the lane, not just how to carry when ahead. You have to know like how to use all my abilities every matchup, how much damage I can deal, how much I can take, and those mastery levels just come with lots and lots of games. So I think that people aren't always the best at self-evaluating how good they are.
Well, and there's a difference between, like, I know what the champion does and I know how to execute on it, and, like, the knowledge level being almost instinctual versus like, yeah, if I can look at this play and know what I should have done and what buttons I should have pressed versus
on
like
the Lee Sin topic, Sven Skaren this weekend, right, with that, you know, kind of intuitive play with the, you know, ward flash kick.
Right, like a lot of players can execute that if someone tells them go do that, but to see that in the moment and instantly execute it is a different level of knowledge.
Well, that conversation devolved, but in a fabulous way. I enjoy it, and on the other side of the break, we'll talk a bit more, but as the issue is resolved on stage, we're going to take a break, and as we go, here's another look at the newest League cinematic for Odyssey.
Happy birthday, big guy. Just a sec. There. Hey, dummy. Did you ever dream of a life among the stars? Well, now you can live that dream aboard our magnificent ship, the Morning Star. Let's meet the crew. First up is Malphite, big boy with a heart of gold. We're still working on his temper. Then there's Yasuo, our captain. Nothing faces this guy. Watch. Heads up! And finally, me. Jinx, your trusty pilot. Also exploded stuff! But wait, there's more. We do all kinds of junk, like recreational activities, hands-on medical training, and team-building exercises. Oh, here's the best part. This beautiful and psychotic assassin wants to annihilate our entire crew. Here's a little list if you left us.
You took what is mine. I will find her, and I...
So cool. So, consider this your invite to join the greatest crew in the galaxy. The only question now is what are you waiting for? No, come on! No. So, kid, what do you say?
Welcome back to the NALCS. We're currently attempting to chrono break the game between Echo Fox and TSM. So while that continues to load up, we want to kind of get a refresher on the game state. We had some good discussion about individuals within the game and some, some conversation around tank play. But as we narrow our focus back into the game as it is in its most recency, pretty even game. Kind of posturing around this dragon. How do we feel both of these teams have performed up to this state?
I actually think this has been a much better series so far. I mean, it's very early on in it, but what we've seen has been a much better series than the quarterfinal matchup that they played, where I think both teams are actually playing fairly well. I still think, obviously there's things to improve. We talked a lot about Huni, but for the most part, these teams are playing their comps and the macro game around them well.
I do think that so far from what I've seen, as I was saying earlier, I expected Bjergsen to kind of outperform his counterpart in Echo Fox, and it kind of seems like that's going on, because if you look at the amount of pressure that each team has gotten, Echo Fox has been pressuring mid quite hard, but even on that first gank where they invested a top lane roam and a jungler's flash, they were only able to get a trade kill with Syndra. And then also on the second gank, Syndra was able to survive a 3-man gank without flash, so just a lot of good plays coming on. And then Damonte did a very, very conservative flash when he saw Skarner for the first time, so I think a mid advantage definitely going TSM's way.
Yeah, and I think that TSM has been a little bit more proactive, but that's not to say that Echo Fox has been slouches in reacting to it. So there was a sequence in this game when TSM lane swapped that we're going to pull up and kind of break through. It was about a 2.5-minute sequence that we thought was actually very well played. So this starts with just normal trading in top lane. This is, I believe, after Huni had burned the ultimates between the two top laners, and TSM decides to swap. First thing, notice Huni's actually warded the lane brush in case that happens. A lot of times you'll see that AD carry support come up and get a kill. That doesn't happen here, and a lot more happens.
Right, and I think what's interesting to note about this one as well was TSM did a similar lane swap in that quarterfinal matchup, but they did it at a time where Echo Fox's bot lane was still in lane and pushed up to the turret, and they got such a massive tempo advantage, it cost them thousands of gold. Here, they do it at the time where both bot lanes had recalled at the same time, so this swap doesn't get quite countered out quite as instantly, and Echo Fox instead have to go for a trade where the tempo is relatively even. TSM are actually a little bit ahead, so after they take this turret, they say, okay, let's go for the next objective up on the top side, and they start focusing down on the Rift Herald.
Right, TSM takes Rift, but Echo Fox recognizes that they will take Rift, and they do a couple of clever things here as well. So notice how Damonte is cheating to the right, so he's going to his strong side of the map, and we don't catch it on camera here, but Smoothie actually tanked a turret shot so they wouldn't have to break off in between minion waves. That bought enough time for the next minion wave to get to turret, which is why they're actually able to get this turret down before Haunter could threaten anything.
The really clever part of this play that I like is up until now, this is all fairly standard macro play, but I think it starts getting a little abnormal right now because at this point, usually both teams would recall to spin the goal that they've earned, but because there's a dragon spawning in 20 seconds, both teams actually opt to stay around. And now I would say that Echo Fox has the advantage coming into the situation because they're postured around the dragon first, and TSM kind of has to walk into them blind, which is always scary to do.
What's nice, though, is that kind of down payment that they made with the Rift Herald is going to pay off because while Echo Fox is posturing around that dragon that's just spawning, they have complete vision control, TSM get mid priority and are able to drop the Rift Herald to actually take a turret here. And because now Echo Fox is forced out of the position that they were holding to go defend against the Rift Herald, now TSM can move in and actually start establishing their own vision.
Alternatively, I think Echo Fox could have tried to go for Drake, but that's a risky play. Instead, they backed off, and then it's like, okay, well, we have teleport, so we're going to go for fight.
Right, and so TSM in this situation, they were actually able to take a disadvantaged position, get a mid turret out of it, get the dragon, bait out a teleport, and get a kill out of all of this. So really like a good play by TSM, taking not a lot and getting a lot out of it.
Right.
2 turrets for each team, but TSM gets the Dragon, as you mentioned, also getting that teleport and even a kill. So, I mean, by all accounts, a win for TSM, but both teams playing to a relatively high level when it comes to the understanding of what strategies were available to them in the moment and then picking the optimal ones.
Right, and I think that's kind of what we were saying, where it's like, this is a better looking series so far. These kinds of plays, sure, there's still some like maybe you shouldn't have gone in here, maybe they're not all on the same page, but the fact that they're all thinking well about the game is good to see.
Yeah, I'm glad we're able to talk about this kind of play because it's one of those things that when you're watching the game, you don't always notice like why these things are happening or like why the teams are doing what they're doing because, you know, everyone can see that like TSM's bot lane went top, but it might not always be clear why they did that. And like a big reason for that is just to get out of laning phase usually. Like if you have a bad top or bot matchup, sometimes you can just like send everyone to one lane if you have decent tempo for it. Tempo meaning like how fast can you push your waves, how fast can you like get to their turrets. So yeah, definitely some good macro play going on there.
Yeah, and that sends the game into a little bit of chaos because when TSM did that lane swap, not only did they dodge laning phase, but they accelerated the pace of the game. There were so many turrets traded. I mean, after the Drake happened, we saw yet another turret trade where Fox took mid tier 1, TSM took bot tier 1. So now they're in a situation with 7 turrets in the game being down, Drake no longer up for another 6 minutes at 14 minutes. We had that discussion of what do you do next, which I like the discussion we had, and you can say what TSM ended up doing next and what they try to do next, but that's not a situation you're often put in where that many turrets are down, Drake is completely gone, and you're just kind of ready to go.
And now, who would you say has the advantage with a more open map? Because there is like, you know, a closed map situation where all the turrets are up and it's a very long laning phase, and there's more of an open map situation where like the tier 1s, the tier 2s start falling. And so in this game, who would you say has an advantage?
I think for me, I often look at the team that has the more globals or the better like laning 1-3-1 matchups. So like Syndra Fizz is like, okay, there's no globals, but if you put Fizz in the side lane and Syndra in a side lane, like give me the Fizz side, please.
Right.
And like I kind of feel that way with Ryze, but I don't think Echo Fox has found a way to manipulate the map to set up side lane plays with the Ryze.
Yeah, I'd want to get your opinion on this too, because my answer would be, from a comp perspective, I do like Echo Fox. They have a better long-range initiator than one of their side lanes, and also Ryze side lanes much better than Syndra, especially when the lanes are long. But because they're lacking vision control, that can get turned around on them, because this was your point, actually. TSM can ward up an opponent's side of the jungle and group invade, so they don't have to be isolated in side lanes.
Right, and so I think those are all good points, and I would actually agree that I think Echo Fox, based on their team composition, does have a slight edge because the Ornn ultimate is the big one. Ornn ultimate is such a good catch tool, and if you're against champs that have lots of mobility like Ezreal, LeBlanc, it's not that punishing, but if you're playing Syndra, you're playing Xayah, you have to invest some really big cooldowns to avoid that Ornn ult, whether it's Flash or Xayah ult. These are like 2+ minute cooldowns for an Ornn ult, which I think Huni's just stacking a lot of CDR so he can just keep ulting. Yeah. And that will probably lead to a lot of catches for Echo Fox, which will then pressure TSM feeling like they have to group, and they're going to feel very scared spreading out at all. That gives Echo Fox a lot more leeway to like split push with Ryze. They feel pretty comfortable. They can just farm up, look for picks, and TSM's going to feel a lot more pressure, in my opinion.
Let's go one level deeper then, because I find this interesting, the idea that if we're indexing or we have more confidence in the composition put forth by Echo Fox at this stage of the game, what about the players and teams piloting those compositions? Because we talk about, you know, Huni not looking the most proficient on Ornn, right? Not awful. I'm sure he could, you know, he can execute on an ultimate catch in a side lane. But there is something to be said for the teams and the way they execute in the late game. Echo Fox generally prone to making a few more mistakes that maybe give away a game than, say, TSM is. Does that weigh on your decision in terms of confidence from 20 minutes in?
I think part of it has to do with how well they play with that macro, like you're saying, and I think TSM has showed that they're playing with tempo pretty well. So, like, while Echo Fox does maybe have better tools for starting fights in the side lane, if TSM is controlling mid and they're the ones always leaving mid lane first and collapsing on stuff, it's really hard to force things. And we've seen a couple times action break out around Huni that TSM is able to kind of get there first initially. And I think that's my concern for Echo Fox.
Yeah, it's pretty funny how throughout the year watching TSM, no matter what composition they played and what the strengths of the composition would be, they would end up doing the same thing. So they have this Blade of the Ruin King, Rageblade Gnar, and he'd be like, I'm coming to the team fight, boys, and he just goes in for it. So at least this time, TSM's composition plays to their strengths, Whereas for Echo Fox, even though they have strengths of being able to initiate well with Ornn and Xin Zhao, I don't necessarily think they're a great 1-3-1 team if Huni's not on a lethal champion like Ornn, and he has to then support someone else's kills.
Right. Also talking about 1-3-1, I think that Echo Fox's comp's not really built for 1-3-1 that well because they have Ryze, which is great for splitting, but Ornn isn't really a split pusher. Like, I think at this point in the game, he can still fight Aatrox decently, but he's not really going to get any advantage doing that. If anything, he kind of makes himself a vulnerability by pushing up really far against Aatrox. So I'm not really sure if that's the strat they're going to look for. If I was Echo Fox here, I'd probably look to set up some kind of like 4-1 where Ryze can split pretty aggressively. You just try to get him enough vision that he's not going to get killed. And then with the rest of your team, you control around mid and you just look for picks. You've got Varus, Morgana, you've got Ornn. So just a ton of pick potential. On TSM side, they also have some good pick with Rakan Skarner, but the Black Shield makes it very hard to engage because if you try like flash Skarner ult and Morgana's there, shields it, you wasted some huge cooldowns.
Yeah. It would be great if we could get the team comms up on the screen as well, so the viewers might have a better chance of
following along. Hopefully we can work on that.
Because I want to talk about this. If it's a 4v4, there's a chance that TSM has much better initiation, right? They have the Syndra in a group situation and they have the Xayah Rakan. So yes, Echo Fox is good in a 4-1, but I want to find a way for Echo Fox to get anyone who's not Aatrox in a side lane, because I think that's when they make their play. If they can ever push the 1-3-1 enough that Bjerg has to go solo lane, that's when I think they need to collapse, because I think 4v4 is actually really scary.
Right. Well, I think both teams have really strong initiation tools. Whoever kind of gets there first and has vision control should be the one to get the advantage. And I think what's happened a couple of times is Echo Fox actually makes the first play well, but then they get too ambitious and they kind of trade back. So there's been a number of times where they find the first kill in the fight and then Dardoch dies a little bit and then Huni keeps going in and he dies as well. And I think if they can be a little bit more controlled, I actually like what I've seen out of Echo Fox's decision making. It's just that they always give that one kill back right now.
Right. The first step in the play is always executed, near perfectly by Echo Fox, but sometimes it feels like maybe there wasn't a discussion about what happens next or after the first person goes down, and that's where you see people result to instinct. Huni wants to go in, the rest of the team wants to pull out, and sometimes it isn't necessarily, ending up as an advantage on their side and more of a trade back at the end of it all. What, if anything, though, have we learned now that we've got the compositions up on the screen, in terms of the way that the teams are approaching playing against each other? Again, we have the discussion about, do you attack Huni, or are we worried about that mid lane, Damonte against Bjergsen, and which champions might fall in favor of those champions?
Midos, did you like the double cleanse from the TSM bot lane?
It's interesting to see that because it's actually what Echo Fox's bot lane ran against TSM when they lost that game 5 in the last series. And I definitely understand the thought process behind it. It's like, hey, Varus Morgana's got a lot of CC. Cleanse is good against CC.
And they can't kill us.
Yeah, and I mean, that is a fair point, but at the same time, you have to look at the cost. Losing like heal and ignite on your bot lane makes you so much less threatening. Like, you have a lot less offensive power because you're taking cleanse. It's a very reactive thing to do. So it seems like TSM's kind of just playing with the idea of like, all right, we're just gonna like take this game to late. It seems like they're kind of planning for late game from the very beginning. Like, we saw with the way Grig played, it's very TSM-esque the way they're playing. It's very controlled, slow, going for the objectives, the dragons, the herald, and just working toward scaling up for late game.
What I will say about the double cleanse is doesn't feel so bad against Echo Fox, who doesn't really play through their bot lane right now. So you saw all the jungle resources seem to be spent more on the top side, and so the concern when you have this kind of like double cleanse is like, okay, they're hard to like all in with our first round of spells, but we have pressure on the bot lane and we use that. And I don't think they really did. Part of that goes to TSM swapping out of the lane as soon as they could, because they probably knew they didn't want to keep fighting. But it is something where consistently it feels like fights are breaking out around either Haunter and Huni or Bjergsen and Damonte. And so if you're saying we're focusing on late game because we're TSM and it doesn't feel like Echo Fox plays for their bot lane, I can see the logic there.
Yeah, I heard the Chrono Break was successful.
It was successful. Woo! Players are getting ready and readying up on stage, so we won't send it out there until they're ready to go.
I'm wondering if the Zillion ban is causing these Chrono Breaks.
We'll look into that.
All right.
Thanks, Medios.
Thanks for the
Tank
Medios over here.
I got a cool stat, actually. I haven't made like any graphics.
Jet stats. Impromptu jet stats.
Well, yeah, because it speaks to TSM's playstyle. So I had the stats team pull which role the other team kills the most.
Okay.
Right? the impetus for this, I was watching an IG game and they kept killing support. I'm like, wow, they must kill the support like a higher percentage of time than most teams. When compared to other teams in the LCS, TSM kills the enemy mid laner and AD carry substantially less than everyone else. So when they're generating kills, it's either on the support, the jungler, or the top laner.
But
I thought was interesting.
But is that because they're more reactive? So they're killing the person who's engaging, which is generally jungler or support,
this is the beginning
or
of
top
the discussion,
laner,
right?
Versus killing backliners who you would be diving or trying to kill if you're the aggressor.
That is really interesting, and I think there's probably a lot of factors that play a part in it. One thing that, like the first thing that stood out to me is that I think TSM plays a very controlled game. They aren't the kind of team that's going to be just like diving you super hard. They don't play those champions, and it's not really their style. They're more of the team that they play the really strong backline comps. They usually fight front to back, meaning once you've killed their carries, the fight's probably long over before that point.
Right.
And a lot of it stems from camping on vision. Usually the first person to check vision is going to be the jungler or the support, maybe a top laner if he's grouped. But usually you're not having your Syndra just go, hey, they might be in this bush, I'm going to check it out. So.
Right, and if you're playing front-to-back team fight, it's like, oh, there's the tank, 5v5, we kill the tank, we won the team fight, and then usually the carries back off, and you don't get a chance to ever kill them.
So sorry, that was the stat from TSM's perspective.
Yeah.
They kill jungler and support more. Does that imply that Echo Fox kills mid and ADC more than anyone?
Let me grab
you didn't check that. Okay, I wasn't sure if you had told stat on both sides.
Yeah,
All right,
give me a second.
How about this one? Here's the brain teaser.
Don't look too much
who
on
on
my phone,
Echo
I'm gonna
Fox
get it.
gets killed the most?
It's top lane, I'm pretty sure. Like,
Maybe.
Maybe.
Both that, him and
Meteor
Dardoch.
stats. Can I play that game more often?
Sounds easier.
I feel like I'd be way more successful at Meteor stats.
all right, so kill percentage for Echo Fox. They kill the enemy jungler 24.9% of the time, which is the second highest in the league.
Dardoch's just aggro all
Optic
the
kills
time.
the top lane jungler more, but it's actually somewhat similar, but they actually kill the enemy support almost never. Lowest percentage in the league.
Is that because they ignore bot lane? So they're like ignoring bot
That's
lane.
probably got a lot to do with it.
And Dardoch fights topside jungle and in Huni.
This is all games of summer split, like plus playoffs.
How controlled is it? Is this a percentage difference from how often the average team is killing someone?
Well, so you know how damage percentage works, right? Like if no one else on your team does damage, your damage percentage is
it's
huge.
gonna look
That's
crazy.
how this works.
Well,
It's
because I was gonna say like some roles probably just die. Like I would believe if tanks and top laners generally and junglers as well have some of the most deaths in the league.
You look at Deathly on Golden Guardians having some of the least deaths, but it's because he's an ADC and he backs out of the fight once his front line goes down.
Across the whole league, top laners die 20.6% of the time, junglers die 22.8% of the time, mid 18.3, bot 15.8, and support 22.5.
Okay, so top jungle support, the front line.
And then it's not like what percent more than other teams. It's just like that actual percentage. So for TSM, like they kill the enemy mid laner about 2% less than the league average, which is the lowest in the league.
Okay,
That's interesting.
That's cool.
Team Liquid, by the way, kills the opponent bot laner 4% more than anyone else in the league.
Why? Can you break down why
I wonder
that
who they
might
play
be?
around.
Huh? Weird.
I mean, that's intriguing, right? It's cool to kind of track and how it might relate to overall a team's tendencies when it comes to team fighting. That for TSM, like they will take more measured team fights. They're going to fight on the vision and in a more prepared style. So no surprise that they index a little bit more towards killing the tanks than say diving to the backline and killing the backline carries. And then similarly for Echo Fox, but. In this game state, as we're at, if we're trying to pull this all back, to this point, are one of these two teams set up better for doing exactly that? Because you earlier said that you feel Haunter is actually playing a front line better on Aatrox than Huni is right now on Ornn. And so this isn't to say that, the champion in its kind of the way it is perceived isn't necessarily the way it has to be played. You can play a frontline Aatrox even though you're building a Black Cleaver.
Yeah, it's looking to me like Echo Fox isn't going to win the 5v5 team fights.
Okay.
So I think they need to attempt to set up 1-3-1, wait for the soul lane to get isolated, and go there. But I think this game is pretty heavily trending towards TSM, assuming no one is mega tilted after the long pause, which is a real factor, because I think they've been getting the team fights, and they've been outplaying them in the team fights.
Yeah, Meteos, it's been a long pot. Well, never mind. I will ask you this question later. As we jump back into the game, we're going to throw it out to the casters for the call.
the 60
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. It has been a hot minute, but we are once again back here to bring you game number 1. Remember, things were rolled back a little bit before the fatal Syndra E that could not be seen. That means Smoothie didn't walk up, didn't get himself killed there, but TSM was still able to find themselves victory in the bottom part of the river, securing that ever so important second Infernal Drake.
Yeah, exactly. So the gold lead, not too big, but again, it is about those neutrals. It is about the double Infernal in particular, as you pointed out. Going to be so big for Hans or for Sven and for Bjergsen here.
You can see Sven trying to get cheeky there with the feathers, steal away that blue buff. Demonte's got it for himself, but over the wall comes Mithy, forces out the flash from the Echo Fox mid laner to keep himself alive.
Yeah, nicely done there. Doesn't actually cost Mithy too much, just the ultimate gets a flash. They also got Seraphs out of Demonte there, so not much left for him in the way of defenses. And this is actually pretty interesting. It looks like Haunter is going for a Ghostblade second. This is becoming a little bit more popular just as a way to actually get into the back line with the Aatrox ultimate, because as you know, when you pop the Aatrox ultimate, you get a burst of speed, and you can actually just kind of pop the Ghostblade, and you start just becoming this race
really
car
fast.
zooming in on top of people with that ultimate. So it's not something that we used to see very much of. This build also allows you to get to 40% CDR very quickly because he is going for the 10% CDR talent in Sorcery. You grab your Caulfield right after the Black Cleaver, boom, already 40%. You can start to spam it out and can be pretty powerful.
Once you hit 40% CDR on Aatrox, after the third Q hits, there's like 2 seconds before you can fire off the first Q again. So it's almost a constant Q dance coming out from this guy to make sure that that damage threat is never ending. And until Huni does have a Warmogs, as we were talking about earlier, one of those items he could be building with the Kindle Gem, you can see he didn't actually sell the refillable for a Ruby Crystal this time around, as happened last time. Instead, still just sitting on that Kindle Gem. But until he does have that regeneration, he is not going to enjoy himself in that 1 versus 1 as TSM push down the top side. Tier 2 under fire taken down. That's free objective for the side of TSM.
And look at all the vision they already have set up around Baron, but Huni is TPing in. Echo Fox trying to get a fight, but TSM may be out.
Once again, Echo Fox want to go for this. Huni's still coming around from the side. Sends off the ultimate, doesn't manage to knock it back, and TSM are now separated, rooted up, and taken down. Mithy's the first one out of the picture. Smoothie gonna be in some trouble now. They're looking to save him away, but Haunter's still got the damage to dunk him right back down. Loss goes down too. Greg finds the kill onto him, but is he gonna be taken down in his own right? Yes, he will. Shutdown goes over to Demonte, but they lose Dardoch in the process. It's 3 dead on the side of Echo Fox. 2 for TSM.
Yeah, critically, both junglers are dead, so I don't think they can actually go for the Baron here, but Huni hanging around needs to make sure that they don't attempt it. It is +1 kills there, though, for Echo Fox, or rather for TSM, as Echo Fox tried to be the ones to get this engaged. Huni on the side looking for the ultimate, but it's Bjergsen and Grig. Nice timing on the scatter. Oh, he didn't get stunned at all. He just straight up did it way too early, then got starter ultimate.
Missed the orange.
On the other side, though, Haunter with a really nice combo. Good timing out of that stopwatch to actually burst down Smoothie. And yeah, in the initial play, I just assumed that he had actually gotten CC'd up, and that caused him to miss the Ornn redirect. Perhaps feeling some pressure to actually get it out earlier, though, because he knew the CC would be incoming. Either way, Huni not able to hit the engage there, and Haunter was caught on this ward. And Huni looks like was able to actually pick up a kill, and no, not quite. Now it's back to live.
Oh, Huni again, 1 and 4 this game.
It did cut out before he got the kill, but Haunter's dead, so I'm assuming he killed him in the brush there where we were in the last replay. Then we went to live, and we see Huni die, so I think he did at least...
We're all over the place, man.
He did at least get the kill on Haunter, and we may find that out from the next replay, but either way, yeah, Huni definitely having a tough time.
And you can see on the side of your screen right now, in the quarterfinals match against TSM, he averaged 4 deaths per game. He's already up to 4 right now, and as the front line, you got to expect you're going to eat a few more shots by the end of the game.
Yeah.
And he needs to make sure that he's not dying senselessly. We've already talked about the communication this game, and I'm not going to say that Orange shouldn't be putting himself out there on the front line to make sure that he's the one soaking all the damage, but I am going to say that they need to make a more coherent effort as a team because it's just not there so far.
Yeah, exactly. It's, you know, it's not necessarily a problem to give up your life as long what you were getting from that is greater than what you were losing, right? And the guys talked about it a lot on the desk, you know, the importance of having that synergy and being on the same page. It's often more important to do the right, like the wrong call together is better than to do the right call but be split up, right? So it's like, oh, okay, well, actually Hooney shouldn't have engaged, so I'm just gonna back off. Well, you're giving up that free kill, whereas perhaps if you commit as a 5-man squad, you could make that work.
You've always got the power of hope and friendship.
There you go.
The other time around, you're just watching your buddy throw himself into the balls of hell.
Is question marking you?
Yeah, you just drop a couple question marks and go back to farming. That's a solo queue way, but that's not the way that's going to get you a victory here in the Gauntlet. That's not the way that's going to punch your ticket to Worlds. That's not the way that's going to bring you back into a spot where you feel like you're in control in this game. Currently down 3,000 gold, down a turret, down 3 elemental drakes with the next one spawning in 20 seconds. When does it become too much for Echo Fox? When does this start to break? As TSM now gets their jungler knocked up into the air. Trying to make the play happen here. Dardoch, good job using the QSS, getting himself away from the Skarner. Demonte is already going to be bursted down. This is going to be big for TSM here, taking down one of the cannons from Echo Fox. As now they've got the opportunity to once more, Azael, seize the neutral objective. As Dardoch will be caught out here, has to flash away from the chains, getting over the wall with the blast cone. But TSM already gets the big game.
Yeah, TSM really starting to feel like they're just in full control. Echo Fox are choosing these fights and losing them. As Demonte Realm warps in and just gets deleted there. TSM could just head over to Baron. I think they're going to at least try to threaten it, maybe force out a response. Hooney is in the area. At the very least, they can establish vision.
And I talked about this in the beginning of the game, how the last time these guys played, it was a scrappy first Drake fight that Echo Fox style that backfired and put them behind. In this game, it's happening again. The scrappy style is not working out. As now Echo Fox coming in, looking to stop TSM. Hooney's going to be taken very low. Into the pit they go. Baron Nashor secured by the side of TSM. They will lose their top laner, but now they're still trying to fight their way out of here. Demonte goes forward. Going to be counterattack. Minty's got a huge ult, and that's the team fighting Azael. That's the guys who are the kings of Europe, looking to bring it back here to NA and find that strength yet again. Greg manages to finish off the last of them, and Echo Fox's base is now going to find itself under siege.
Yeah, they can just run it down. They're not going to go for the end because you can see Bjergsen is going mid lane. They're going to try to press for 2 inhibitors here. 1 inhibitor in the top lane certainly going down. They could meet up with Bjergsen in that mid lane, try to go for that, but it looks like TSM 3-man squad actually want to try to end it anyway, so Bjergsen should have been with them. They may just get the 1 inhibitor turret and try to go back. They're just going for it.
They don't even care. Dardoch is the only one up. He's going to be joined soon by Smoothie, but that's still only jungler and support. TSM looking to put the DPS into Dardoch. They'll get him in time. Sven goes unstoppable. Still going to be kept alive. Does get taken down. The binding isn't blocked, and Smoothie grabs the kill into Sven. TSM take down the mid lane inhibitor turret as they take their lead.
A bit of a split call there, though, from TSM. It looked like the 3-man squad was calling to end the game, and Bjergsen is trying to push to get additional turrets in the mid lane. If he had been with them in that top lane, maybe they can actually end the game. There's a lot of AP on this Syndra. He would have done a ton of damage, but either way, TSM massively ahead after this play.
This Mithy ult, keep your eyes on him in this fight.
Yeah, Mithy definitely coming up big in this one. Did get bound up in the Baron. Close to going down, but not quite able to get it. And then you can see as the re-engage was going to come across, Sven pulling backwards. Demonte gets the Banshee's Veil popped, and in goes Mithy, getting all the members there. And Greg with the flash in follow up. They get the ace and the Baron. So much off of that play. And you asked Flowers, when is it too much? Well, welcome to it.
That's when it becomes too much. And you said, Azael, these men are team fighters. They prove themselves in the later stages of the game. And Mithy, right there. You look at games, you look at moments where they're won and lost, and a lot of times you can pinpoint specific instances that really were where a game was either turned or solidified for one team. And that was a solid damn ultimate. That was good.
Yeah, no kidding. Mithy definitely coming up big there. And you have to look no further than the marksman's itemization to understand how big the difference in this game is now. Sven is on 4 items and Lost is on 2.5. So you know,
feels
he is
bad, man.
Massively behind. Yeah,
depending on the perception that you're looking at it from. I mean, if you're Sven, this is fantastic. If you're Lost,
glass half full.
yeah, exactly. It's all about the perspective. As TSM are focusing in now on this bottom side. Last inhibitor turret still standing. They want to brute force this one down. They've got everybody hanging around here. They're still waiting for Hanser to show up. He's also trying to apply some pressure between the lanes, make sure he can bounce back and forth between bottom and mid as the inhibitor is open.
Yeah, the Super Minions are coming in the top. Hanser is going to press for this mid lane inhibitor. TSM just needs to keep the 4-man squad there, and Bjergsen, a lot of damage done on that combo. That was through Black Shield without him using his ultimate. And eventually, someone from Echo Fox has to go answer these Super Minions. There's only one Nexus turret, and it's already low, so TSM just need to play it slow and not get engaged on.
TSM playing this one smart so far. They take down the final inhib turret. Bjergsen finds the damage on the smoothie, forces him to go into stasis to keep himself alive. Ornalty comes through. Echo Fox's final defense begins here. They're able to find the route down onto the tank. The enemy team is still not going to be enough. 50's able to find knockouts onto 2. The CC is there. The damage will follow, and Echo Fox is done. TSM repeats what they did in the quarterfinals and takes game 1.
A dominant game 1 victory here for TSM, close for the first 22-25 minutes. But one team fight in the top side. Echo Fox not able to get the engage. TSM went out on that fight, able to take it into the Baron, a clean ace, and that was a decisive victory from there.
And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Echo Fox needs to go backstage, and they need to get this coordination on the same page, because that game, they weren't even reading the same chapter. Everyone seemed like they weren't finding the same, they weren't even looking at the same situations the same way, and they really need to bring that together, because this is a team that we've seen work wonders and be very coordinated and pick those fights and set the tempo of the game. And this game, it just backfired every single time.
It really did, and you said it, that has been their strength, right? They were supposed to be the skirmish team. They were supposed to be the team that finds those fights, that finds the 2v2s, the 3v3s, the individual outplays, and makes it work. It's not always been about this beautiful slow-paced macro style from them. It's about fighting, and if your fighting is not coordinated, is not on point, what does Echo Fox have?
They have themselves a situation that they need to find a remedy for. And for now, on how game 1 went the way of TSM, we're going to send things back over to the State Farm Analyst Desk.
That's exactly right, Captain Flowers. Thank you very much. TSM coming away with the victory. Quick to end after resuming from that pause. It seemed quite dominant. And Meteos, before we dove back into the game, I was just about to ask you what the duration of a pause like that can do to a player. You yourself have sat through a number of them at times in your career, and I can only imagine, but I'd like to hear straight from you.
Pauses are very rough on players. I actually tweeted out right before this at Medius LOL on Twitter that sorry, that it's so hard for players, because you know, like, you're going into these games, like, a lot of the way these players operate is off of like intuition, instincts, just like gut feelings to things. And when you have to wait around for so long, like, you just lose that, basically. Like, you come back into the game and you're kind of like, what was going on here? I don't even remember. Like, for me personally, as a jungler, I feel like I always have these timers going through my head for like enemy flashes, jungle camps, buffs, dragons, etc. And it's like, wait, I thought his flash came up in 5 minutes, not 45 minutes from now. So that can just really mess with you.
Even like intuitively for some players, like you're talking about, if you're a top laner and you're doing trades for 20 minutes in a regular game, you start developing a feel for how those patterns are going. And like, I'm winning the trade, this kind of stuff, and then like to completely lose that feeling, to completely lose that feeling, and have to go back in and be like, how
do I still win this trade?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Like, those kinds of things, I know some players have said to me, like, that's one of the worst parts for them.
And I think in some ways, if we talk about this mentality, and I'm looking specifically at a team like Echo Fox, you know, that they might even be more susceptible to some of that than other organizations or other squads.
Yeah. So you don't want the ability to tilt or not tilt on a pause to matter. Like, pauses suck for sure.
Correct.
And I do think Echo Fox was disadvantaged before that incredibly long chrono break. Where
they were already 2 Infernal Drakes down.
Smoothie didn't see the Syndra E. They agreed because they were most likely losing that fight, whether or not it hits, it's over. But they were disadvantaged in this game, and this was one of the fastest, like, especially the Baron fight we got to see at the end, the fastest, oh, let's just fight this anyway. Because if we don't win, we want to go next anyway. It's a 5-game series. Like, it almost felt like that's the soft way of surrendering without actually doing it on the LCS.
Yeah, it kind of is like, I feel like anyone who's played League has encountered a player, if they haven't done it themselves, where it's not that you're trying to lose, but it's you just kind of go limp to everything. You're just like, I'm not really trying to put much more effort into this. Like, I'm kind of having a terrible time here. Let's just get out of the situation.
Yeah, you're not being careful. So this was one of the last fights we saw before the pause, and you can kind of see it was trending towards
TSM.
back and forth. This was post-pause right here. You can see Huni comes back, way too eager on his E. I think he was trying to get it off before
Maybe he tried doing the second.
That was his
before
R.
the
That
pause.
was his second R charge.
Yeah, second R charge. Didn't get that hit off. It unsuccessfully zones out Bjergsen, who's able to come in at the end of the fight to turn this. And there was only like 3 or 4 minutes more gameplay before this one is over. This is another fight they lost. But the biggest one was this one. They're already, Huni's basically 0 health. They don't have Baron, and they flash into this fight. This was the most tilted fight I think I've seen in a while.
Yeah, definitely the case. I mean, even at the start of that fight, Huni just eat into all 5 members while they were doing the Baron to try and get something going. And you can definitely feel that this was a game that people are going to have to recenter themselves after.
That's so hard as a player,
Yep.
because like, you know, I've been in situations where like you can get pretty emotional playing, and it just sort of like takes a toll on the way you play. All your decisions get worse. So I really hope that's not the case, because these two teams have practiced so hard for this. There's so much on the line that when there's technical difficulties, like there's not really a good way to resolve them. It's unfortunate it happened, but both teams just have to try their best to recoup and keep playing.
So, you know, now they're in that moment, right? The time between games for them to come together as a squad, right? The veterans or, you know, the leaders on the team need to step up and make sure that everybody else is returning to, you know, a state of normalcy and mental preparation when it comes to that second game. But I think that's where I'd like to focus then, because we did so much discussion on the state of the game leading up to the pause, and the pause, you know, and then following that, the game ended relatively quickly in TSM's favor. So let's refocus in on Game 2 and what should be done on the side of Echo Fox, aside from mental preparation within the game, to come away and actually extend this one to a 5-game series.
I do think that the draft needs to be talked about a little bit for Echo Fox, because while I don't think that their draft was terrible or anything like that, I do think that it could have been a lot better, because as you saw, they let Dardoch's champion pool get pinched pretty hard. He was on that Xin Zhao, and it's not that he played Xin Zhao badly or anything, but Xin Zhao is just not one of the better champions in the game right now. Like, they let him lose Graves and everything like that.
Echo Fox has selected red side, so if that informs any of your analysis here moving into Game 2, go for it, Jack.
Well, we have to note that this, I think they should try and use the counter pick for Huni, and that they should try and pick a jungler in the first 3 picks so it doesn't get super pinched. It's really tough, though, because top lane counter picks right now aren't that great. If the other team has Sion, what do you really do to generate a large advantage? I want them to do it, I just don't know how.
Right, I mean, you saw them try and do that yesterday when they left up the...
Vayne top.
Urgot.
Please don't suggest that.
I mean, you go back to Urgot
Yeah, that's what I was
as long
gonna
as
say.
Urgot's available.
TSM should ban Urgot.
Right.
They're
Well,
blue
okay.
side, or they should first pick it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yesterday, Echo Fox left it up so that the blue side could first pick it, and then they tried to counter pick it.
With Cassio.
Right, and then I was going to follow it up with, that didn't look super effective. I mean, they did win that game, but the Cassio got ahead, then fell back behind, then got back ahead, and like I think that was great against Clutch, but I'd be hesitant to see that working against TSM.
Okay, so if there really are no counter pick options in the top lane, you're looking at, I guess, the mid lane for a counter pick, and then it's a matter of getting Damonte in a good position against Bjergsen, who has shown he can play anything from a Zillion to a carry Aurelia. I mean, it seems like his, you know, champion pool is so large and unpredictable, it'd be hard to set up, in a way, a comp that Damonte can counter pick with.
One thing that I wasn't too big of a fan of for Echo Fox's draft is when you put Ryze with Varus together, you actually end up having a pretty low-range comp, and that can work against some stuff, but against specifically like Rakan and Syndra, those champions create a huge zone, and you basically have to step into their engage range to do any damage at all. So you're either like tiptoeing on the outside of the fight, not really contributing much, or when you do decide to commit into the fight, you run the risk of just getting instantly killed. So I probably would have liked Echo Fox's comp if they went with the Syndra in the first 3. They did hover it and thought about it, but they ended up going with the Ryze, and whether that was to be a flex or not seemed a little questionable to me.
All right, we have to take a quick break. When we return, the series between Echo Fox and TSM continues, so don't go anywhere.